Most people think the reason they crash in the middle of the day is lack of sleep, poor diet, or maybe stress. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Even if you sleep 8 hours, eat clean, and try to manage stress, your brain is still bleeding energy by lunchtime. Not because of the tasks you do, but because of the hidden switches it flips every few seconds. These are called micro switches of attention. They happen when your brain jumps from one stimulus to another. Each one costs a small unit of mental fuel, and when you add them up across thousands of switches per day, you lose nearly a third of your total energy. That is why you feel drained before half of the day is even over. The good news is that these leaks can be sealed. There is a protocol for locking those hidden energy drains and turning them into an extra supply of what I call hidden fuel. If you install this protocol, you can reclaim up to 30% of your brain's usable energy without adding a single hour of sleep or another cup of coffee. Think of your brain as a high-performance computer. You may have the most powerful processor in the world, but if you keep dozens of background windows open, the system slows down. You think you are working on the main task, but your brain is secretly allocating resources to irrelevant processes. The same is true for attention. Every time your phone lights up, every time a stray thought pulls you into a rabbit hole, every time you glance at another tab, you are paying an invisible tax. The brain does not distinguish between relevant and irrelevant switches. It just spends fuel. The result is that by noon you are already operating at half power. Top performers do not allow that. They run their mental operating system with ruthless efficiency, and the way they do it is by controlling the switch cost. The protocol of hidden fuel is designed to do exactly that. Step 1 is awareness. You cannot control what you cannot detect. For the next 3 days, I want you to run a simple scan on yourself. Every time your focus jumps without your deliberate choice, make a tiny note. Do not overthink, just count. Most people are shocked when they realize their brain flips context more than 300 times in a single morning. That is like sprinting back and forth without ever moving forward. This exercise alone will make you conscious of the scale of the leak. Awareness is the first lever, because what is visible can be controlled. Step 2 is installation of attention gates. Neuroscience shows that the prefrontal cortex acts like a bouncer at the club door of your mind. It decides what gets in and what gets blocked. But if you do not program that gate, it lets everything through. A notification, a random memory, a sound in the background, they all get VIP entry. To install gates, you use what is called a context command. Before you start any important block of work, you state, out loud or on paper, exactly what the context is. For example, for the next 40 minutes, my only focus is preparing this report. Or, for the next 20 minutes, my only focus is reading this chapter. This small declaration is not motivational fluff. It activates the prefrontal cortex to filter incoming signals. You literally prime your brain to block irrelevant stimuli, the same way a search filter blocks unwanted results. The result is fewer microswitches and an immediate conservation of fuel. Step 3 is the cycle reset. Even with gates, the brain has natural oscillations. After about 90 minutes of intense focus, the default mode network in your brain will start to push back, pulling you into daydreams or distractions. Instead of fighting it, you need to reset. The reset is simple. Stand up, move your body for 2 minutes, breathe deeply, and let your gaze shift to a wide visual field. When you do this, you quiet the task networks and allow the brain to flush out residue. Think of it as clearing the cache memory on your computer. After a reset, you return with the hidden fuel restored because you prevented the buildup of microswitch residue. The mistake most people make is they skip resets and push forward in fatigue, which only multiplies the leaks. Step 4 is environment control. The architecture around you is either stealing or saving your fuel. Every visible object, every source of noise, every signal in your environment competes for attention. If you want hidden fuel, you strip the environment of unnecessary triggers. One of the fastest hacks is to clear your desk of anything unrelated to the task at hand. Another is to place your phone not just face down but outside your physical reach. Why? Because neuroscience shows that even the presence of a smartphone in sight consumes cognitive resources. Your brain allocates monitoring power to the device, even if it is off. That is a constant leak. Remove the trigger, and you instantly save fuel without any effort. Step 5 is sequencing. The order in which you do tasks changes the size of the leaks. If you begin your day with reactive tasks like email or scrolling, you program your brain to expect constant switching. It sets the default pattern of micro-switching for the rest of the day. But if you start with a deep single-task activity, what I call a lead block, you install the opposite pattern. You teach your brain that today's operating system is single focus. From that point on, it becomes easier to conserve fuel because the brain is primed for depth. This is why high achievers guard their first hour as sacred. It is not just about productivity, it is about programming the switching cost for the entire day. Now, here is where most people fail. They understand the concept, but they never turn it into a protocol. The hidden fuel protocol is not theory. It is a system you run daily. Scan for leaks to build awareness. Install gates with context commands. Use cycle resets to clear residue. Strip the environment to reduce triggers. And lock the day with sequencing. Each of these is simple. Together, they reprogram your mental operating system to run 30% more efficiently. The science behind this is solid. Functional MRI studies show that each task switch activates overlapping brain regions that consume oxygen and glucose, the brain's fuel. The cost is measurable. In fact, some studies estimate that context switching can reduce performance by up to 40%. But when you seal those switches, you are not just preventing a drop, you are creating a compounding edge. Think about it. 30% more usable energy every single day means an extra 2 hours of sharp focus without caffeine or stimulants. Over a week, that is an extra working day. Over a year, that is 50 full extra days of peak performance. That is the leverage most people never unlock. To make this stick, you must treat it as a protocol, not an experiment. That means you install it as part of your standard operating system. You do not negotiate with it. You do not wait until you feel like it. You run the code every day until it becomes automatic. The hidden fuel protocol is not about motivation. It is about removing leaks so your natural energy can finally do its job. And once you feel the difference, once you go through an afternoon still sharp and in control while others crash, you will understand why top performers guard this advantage like a secret weapon. This is only the beginning of what the protocol can unlock. In the second half, I am going to show you how to stack advanced triggers to expand the effect beyond 30% and create a sustainable flow state across your entire day. This is where hidden fuel stops being a recovery mechanism and becomes an offensive weapon for domination. Now let's push deeper. The base protocol already gives you back 30% of your energy, but elite performers don't stop there. They stack hidden fuel with advanced triggers that multiply the effect. These triggers work because they exploit natural neurochemistry. The first trigger is called priming cues. Your brain consumes less fuel when it recognizes a predictable pattern. That is why habits feel easier than decisions. To use this, you front-load your day with the same ritual before deep work. It could be as simple as sitting in the same chair, opening the same notebook, or starting with a specific breathing pattern. What matters is consistency. Each repetition tells your brain, we are entering focus mode. That predictability removes the cost of switching and channels more fuel into the task. You are essentially outsourcing willpower to a cue, so you save energy for execution. The second trigger is what I call selective friction. Not all distractions can be removed, but you can raise the cost of switching to them. The brain is wired for efficiency. If it takes more effort to reach the distraction than to stay in focus, it will stay in focus. For example, put your social apps behind a password manager or log out after each use. That extra step is a friction layer. It may seem small, but in neuroscience terms, it rewires the reward-cost equation. The distraction no longer feels like the fastest option, so your brain resists switching. This hack reduces unnecessary micro-switches automatically, without willpower. The third trigger is strategic fueling. Most people use caffeine randomly, but caffeine is an amplifier, not a generator. If you pour it on a distracted brain, it just makes you distracted faster. The key is timing. You first lock in focus with context commands and environment control. Only then, about 90 minutes into your day, you add caffeine. At that point, it enhances stable attention rather than chaos. Pair it with hydration and light movement, and you extend the life of your hidden fuel by another 2 hours. That is how top performers use caffeine as a scalpel, not a hammer. The fourth trigger is emotional tagging. Energy is not only chemical, it is also motivational. Neuroscience shows that tasks linked to emotional relevance activate dopamine pathways that sustain effort with less perceived fatigue. You can hack this by reframing any task in terms of personal impact. Before starting, ask, what is the win if I finish this? Or what is the cost if I delay it? Write that down in one sentence. This small action changes the task from abstract to emotionally charged. The brain now treats it as significant, which keeps you engaged longer without draining fuel. The fifth trigger is recovery scheduling. People think recovery is passive, but in reality, recovery is an active weapon. If you schedule deliberate micro-recovery breaks every 3 hours, you prevent the silent accumulation of fatigue. These breaks are not scrolling or random chatting. They are fuel-positive resets, a 10-minute walk, exposure to natural light, or controlled breathing. Each one rebalances the nervous system and preserves hidden fuel. Over the course of a day, that translates into hours of additional sharpness compared to someone who pushes through until they collapse. Combine these 5 triggers with the base protocol, and you are no longer operating like the average person. You are running a high-performance operating system. Let's put this into a tactical routine so you can install it immediately. You wake up and protect the first hour as your lead block. Before you start, you declare your context command out loud. That primes your attention gate. You eliminate environmental triggers by clearing your desk and placing your phone out of reach. You dive into deep work with no notifications, and when your 90-minute cycle ends, you execute a reset with movement and wide visual focus. That alone seals most of the leaks. Then you stack advanced triggers. You use the same ritual to prime focus each day, so your brain enters flow without hesitation. You build selective friction around your biggest distractions, so they lose their pull. You time caffeine only after you have already locked focus, which amplifies clarity instead of chaos. You reframe each task with an emotional tag, so the brain perceives it as significant. And every 3 hours, you schedule a micro-recovery that prevents fatigue before it builds. By the end of the day, you are not crashing. You are still sharp, still decisive, still moving forward when most people are running on fumes. Here is why this matters. The competitive edge today is not about working more hours. It is about extracting more usable energy from the hours you already have. The average person wastes a third of their mental fuel every single day, and they never question it. They think it is normal to be drained by noon. But the truth is, it is optional. With the Hidden Fuel protocol, you can seal the leaks and run at full capacity, not for an hour, but for the entire day. That is how you separate yourself in a world where everyone else is playing tired. Energy is the real currency of achievement. Guard it, control it, and you control your output, your results, and ultimately, your life trajectory. The choice is simple. You can keep leaking energy on unconscious micro-switches like everyone else, or you can install the Hidden Fuel protocol and reclaim the power your brain is designed to give you. Scan for leaks, install attention gates, reset cycles, control your environment, and sequence your day. Then stack the advanced triggers, priming cues, selective friction, strategic fueling, emotional tagging, and recovery scheduling. This is not motivation. This is not productivity theory. This is neurobiology turned into a weapon you can use every day. When you run this system, you unlock the competitive edge that others cannot touch because you are operating at an energy level they never reach. If you are serious about building an arsenal of mental codes that give you an unfair advantage, this is just one protocol among many. Subscribe to Success Code now because every video is another code, another system, another protocol that you can install to dominate your career, your finances, and your communication. The world runs on hidden rules, and those who know how to install them win. Success Code is where you get the playbook.